Hello and welcome to the What's the Story podcast. I'm Jarlath Kyan.
And I'm Victoria Houston. Each week we'll be focusing on the stories that matter to you. Stories about the people and places that make Tyrone so special.
The What's the Story podcast is brought to you by the Northwest News Group, who also print our much-loved newspapers, the Ulster Herald, Strabane Chronicle and the Tyrone Herald. Enjoy the show.
That lovely sound was a group of school children singing in Omagh last week. The thumping sound in the background is maybe a bit of a clue as to what the event was. It was the sod cutting ceremony to mark the official beginning of construction work at the new £375 million Strule Shared Education Campus in Omagh. It was a glorious sunny day for the great and the good as it gathered at the huge site for the event. However, we have been here before. 10 years ago, another sod cutting ceremony was held at the site. The campus was originally due to open in 2020, but it will be 2028 before the campus opens fully. So why has it taken so long to get to the stage with the project which was first proposed back in 2010 as part of the Hillsborough Agreement? My name is Kieran O'Neill, and this week on the What's the Story podcast, we're taking an in-depth look at Omagh's biggest ever construction project and what it means for the future of education in the town. So I'm joined by two people who have followed all the twists and turns around the plans for the Strule campus over the last 15 years. Jonathan Rainey is Assistant Editor of the Ulster Herald and Alan Rogers is a Senior Journalist with the paper. So Jonathan, there's been a lot involved in this project for a long time, but I think it would be helpful if you could just kind of explain to listeners in very simple terms what's involved in the Strule Shared Education Campus and what's the background to the project?
Yeah, well, Kieran, in a nutshell, really, the Strule Shared Education Campus, it's the largest ever educational infrastructure project ever to take place in the north. It was first announced back in the Hillsborough Agreement in 2010. And basically, in essence, what they're doing is that they're going to bring in a total of 6 schools in Omagh, moving them into the one site. Basically, it was a large area of land that recently vacated by the British Army. It was the Lisnelly Army Barracks. So the 5 of Omagh's post-primary schools are involved. That is Omagh Academy, Omagh High School, Sacred Heart College and Loreto Grammar and the CBS, and also Arvely Special School. Those are the 6 schools involved. And basically the whole idea behind bringing all the schools together is that they're going to be able to make use of state-of-the-art shared facilities and also sports equipment and the sports fields as well. That's basically what the project involves in a nutshell.
So it was 2010, wasn't it? It was first put forward.
Yes.
And it was part of the, if I can think back to then, the whole Roy Up and Stormont, the DUP and Sinn Féin, there was, I think the Stormont had fallen apart again, and this Hillsborough Agreement was to get them back in power together. But within that agreement, it actually mentions about the shared education campus in Omagh. So that's how far it goes back. You were saying Arvely is one of the schools involved. They're actually out there. They're on the site already,
Yeah.
but that was by accident more than design.
Well, that's right, Kieran. Basically, there was a massive fire at the Arvely School back in 2012, and that caused significant damage to the school building. So at that point, I think basically it made sense for them, for a new building to be built for them. And so, obviously the idea behind it was always they were going to move into the Strule campus site. So then, they built the brand new building for Arvely, and it was opened in 2016, which is, almost 10 years ago now. So, but as it stands, Arvely is the only school that is actually on the site at the minute.
So we've had the situation where we've had a massive delay, and I was at the sod cutting ceremony that happened last Wednesday, and I spoke to the minister there and I asked him around the delays and why is it taking so long.
I can understand that frustration. Nearly 15 years when this project was first talked about, and there are many reasons why that has happened. I suppose I can answer for when I came into my office a year ago. I sat down with my team and said, where's the Strule Education Campus project? Talk me through what the issues are, because we were at a critical point in terms of the procurement process, which was in danger of collapsing, and we put in the resources to take us through all of the relevant business cases, economic appraisals, to make sure that we had the most robust evidence to show that this was going to be value for money. And then I, as the Education Minister, brought this forward to the executive. So I first endorsed it, had to take a decision around the quantum of the funding that's involved, which is significant in the context that my department does not have the resources that it needs to build everybody their new school that they want or are waiting on, or the extensions and school enhancement programs. But I prioritised Strule, and I recognised we needed to make the progress, and I was delighted that the executive and the First and Deputy First Minister came here, but I had to get wider support given the size of funding that's going to be involved. So I understand the frustrations along that journey. I can account for, when I came in, the priority that I've gave to make sure that actually we delivered on this, and I think today people can see that it's now happening. Seeing is believing, and in a number of years they will be in world-class facilities, and I think that's ultimately now what we should celebrate. But also, of course, I understand the frustrations as to how it's taken time to get to this point.
That's what the minister had to say, but in terms of people in Omagh, the schools in Omagh, this is a massive project. It's going to affect so many people and so many aspects of life in the town. But how much frustration has there been in terms of how long it's taken to get to this point?
Oh yeah, well, Kieran, it wouldn't be a major infrastructure project in the Omagh area without major delays, as you know, from the A5 road as well. I don't know, how many years that's been going on for. But in terms of the Strule Education Campus, I think one of the biggest issues at very early on was actually persuading the schools involved that this is what they wanted to do, because all the schools in Omagh, the post-primary schools in Omagh, they all have their own kind of history and traditions, that they've been on their various sites for generations now. And I suppose there would have been concerns over kind of loss of identity by moving from the buildings where they have this history into pretty kind of nondescript buildings on the new site. So obviously that was a big issue very early on. But also, as well as that, it's a major change for the town itself. Like this would represent the biggest change in Omagh and the town centre for generations. So it's certainly my lifetime, and probably my lifetimes before that as well, because when all those the big kind of post-primary schools move out of the town centre, they'll leave massive vacant sites there, and also, as well as that, lunchtime trade as well in the town. Like the amount of school children that you would see walking about at lunchtime, going, getting their food and all, like, what's going to happen
it's
then?
going to have a massive impact on the town. Like, it's because Strule campus is too far out for the children to walk into town. If you know what I mean, so it's the impact it's going to have on the town itself, and then on the Strule area, like the facilities there in terms of businesses around there to cater for that. Is it going to become? There's going to be new business facilities open there, but as you say, there's no doubt it's going to have a massive impact on the town centre in particular. Yeah, like there are still a lot of questions that still need to be answered. Obviously, there was questions over, funding issues as well. Whether they'd be able to get the money for this massive project. I think whenever it was originally announced, I think they estimated it was going to cost around 170 million. But now, I think the estimated total now is around 375 million. So that is a lot of money. At a time whenever other areas are pretty stretched, like the likes of the health service and all. So is it actually fair to be spending all that much money on this education project when other areas seem to need it more? I don't know. It's clearly there's obviously been a lot of problems, and as the education minister admitted, that the procurement exercise around the whole project wasn't in danger of collapsing. He says. Since he's come in the office, so there's obviously, a lot of issues still to be sort of debated around it. Alan, you and I were at the sod cutting ceremony last week, and as often happens in these events, it's very, very much a PR exercise. With the glossy video, all the well-to-do and sort of important people were there. It was a lovely day. It very went well. The pictures, whatever. But when you sort of dig below that sort of PR surface, the event itself was kind of overshadowed a lot by the decision by Omagh High School, who were one of the schools involved in the project, to boycott the event. Why did they do that, and what was the sort of background to that situation?
Well, I suppose the background to it, Kieran, was the fact that we have to realise that negotiations and talks over the Strule campus have been going on now for probably, 15 years, but very specifically over this last decade. So I was looking there this morning, and the actual plans for it, they were first published in 2019. I remember being at an event in the Silver Birches Hotel, I think it was probably 2018 or 2017, where they outlined where all the different schools would be and what they would look like. And, there's going to be sports facilities, there's going to be a central sort of building where there'll be pooled facilities for the likes of information technology, all those different types of specific subjects. So the background then to this was that Omagh High School, obviously, along with the four other schools, Arvely being there already, they were involved in their own specific discussions with the designers and, where do we want to put different aspects of the school building. So all that appeared to be going reasonably well. We never really heard many details about it because we assumed that it was taking place and that people were fairly content with what was happening. And then suddenly on last Tuesday afternoon, there was this statement came in from Omagh High School saying that they were going to boycott the sod cutting ceremony because they had serious concerns over the design of their building and what they were getting and all this kind of crack. So it was a surprise because, up until now we had assumed, and there'd be no indication that assumption was in any way inaccurate, that all the schools were fully behind the scheme. Suddenly then, as I say, the Omagh High School come in, and they have a number of, I think their main concern probably is the fact that at the moment, under the new principal, Christos, they've grown quite a bit over this past number of years, and I think to his credit, he's very keen to ensure that growth continues, and as he says, the population and the demographic changes in Omagh that are taking place are going to mean that more pupils are perhaps going to want to go to his school. So he looks at the plans and he sees that these plans don't accommodate the growth that he hopes and expects will take place. He also has concerns over various aspects of the design, like canteen facilities. He talked about students being asked to go outside to access lockers, and he felt that that's inappropriate and that there's a student welfare issue there. So there were a range of issues like that he was concerned about. So he took the decision then, and the Board of Governors as well, to boycott this sod cutting ceremony. And that's a very serious decision to take, because obviously he had been so involved in the whole process, like any of the previous, when the announcement of the funding was taken last year, he was front and centre doing interviews and all like that. The children were front and centre. So for him to take that decision was, I won't call it momentous, but I'm sure it was a difficult decision for them to take, but they felt that it was the only option that they had in terms of highlighting the concerns around the design of their school and how many pupils and students that it would be able to accommodate.
And he certainly got quite a lot of attention then, so it did what the school wanted in terms of getting their message across. But at the event last week, it was interesting that the other principals were there from the other schools attended the event, and you get speaking to some of them. So we have the interviews coming up here, but who did you get speaking to at the event?
I suppose the thing I would say about the decision by the Omagh High School, it was a difficult one for another reason as well, and it meant that their students weren't involved in that sod cutting ceremony. And we can look at that in two ways, that they were making a stand, but then we can also look at it from the viewpoint of them missing out on an opportunity. And there could be a debate around that as to whether it was correct for the school to effectively deny the students the opportunity to participate in the sod cutting ceremony. Fair enough if the principal and the Board of Governors, if they don't want to go, fair enough. But the question has to be asked, was it right for them to, maybe they consulted the students, I don't know, but was it right for them to take that decision where the students weren't able to be there? Because I suppose whatever way you look on it, this is an historic event for Omagh. It's a sod cutting, and those students who were there would certainly have remembered it for the rest of their lives. But getting back to your original point, yes, I went out along with yourself, and I spoke to three of the principals. I spoke to Fonzie McConnell, who's the headmaster of Omagh CBS. I spoke to Susan Cullinan, the principal of Loreto Grammar, and I also spoke to Michael Gormley, the principal of Sacred Heart College. Susan Cullinan, principal of Loreto Grammar. How do you feel today that we've reached this stage where the first sod cutting for the Strule campus has taken place?
Hello Alan, we're absolutely delighted to get to this stage today. It's a great milestone, and today brings a real sense of reality to this whole project, and we can see that within a short while, not 2 years, it will come to fruition.
And have you been over to see the site where the Loreto will be based?
Yes, I saw all of the sites today, and we had a good view of where all of the schools will be positioned. So we're really excited and looking forward to that. And we've been looking at the cranes from over the fences for a few weeks now. So it's actually good to see where exactly everything is going to be is spaced.
And it's a very large site. What are your first impressions?
I think it is obviously a large site for the amount of pupils and schools that are going to be here, but first impressions are very, very positive. We're feeling very, very positive about this.
Mm-hmm. And come here, will it be a wrench to leave, the Loreto site that has been such a part of the town for so many basically 160 years.
Well, actually 170 years coming this year, because the school was founded in 1855, so we are preparing to celebrate our 170th year. Absolutely, I suppose with any change or transition, there is that process, or that part of the process, where you're leaving something so important behind. But as I have said, and there's a great legacy of Loreto in Omagh, and that's very important. But we will carry forward all the values, the ethos, the principles. So Loreto will be on a new site. Yes, we will miss our own site, and it's a beautiful site. You would be familiar with it as well. But we will make this a new version of our Loreto school, but it will still be wholeheartedly a Loreto school through and through on the shared campus.
Now, obviously, I suppose on a different matter, there were a few concerns expressed this, yesterday and today by the principal of Omagh High School. And in the course of what he said that some of his concerns were shared by other principals. Do you share those concerns about some of the design features of the different schools?
There were negotiations that took place, and I suppose everybody asked for as much as they could and what they wanted, and there were at points compromise, but we're very happy. As I said to the previous gentleman to whom I spoke earlier, there hasn't been a huge amount of investment, capital investment or investment to improve the resources on site for a large number of years, because we've been going to Strule. So we are really looking forward to state-of-the-art facilities, and our pupils deserve no less.
Start with you, Fonzie.
Okay.
How important a milestone do you feel today is?
Well, I suppose in terms of the work that's done to date, there's a huge background to that, but I think it sort of, for some of those people maybe that doubted this would happen, this will finally convince them that it's there. That is a milestone. You can see the work that's done already. Literally, the foundations are in, and it's an easier build from there.
And I suppose you'll not be around to maybe see it reach fruition because you'll be retired.
Well, I hope to be around, but I mightn't be as principal of the school. I hope
that's what I mean.
Oh, that's what you mean. Well, that's not so bad. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, but no, listen, I look forward to it too, because you sort of having spent a few years in the Christian Brothers, it's just things like that's close to your heart as well.
Mm-hmm. And a minute, was there a point in the whole process where you maybe thought, I don't know whether this is going to happen?
I think for most of the principals in Illinois, we always were optimistic enough. We knew we needed new schools. The whole sort of thing about shared education was well embedded in Omagh area anyway. So it was only a matter of time. Sometimes it looked dark in that, but we're always optimistic. I was anyway.
Yeah, and I see, obviously in relation to the schools as they are at the moment, are they? I know you will be moving here in the next few years, but at the moment, are the schools? What kind of shape are they in? For example, your own?
Well, they're all in good enough shape, but at certain times weather will determine otherwise, and there is that. And I think if you look at the new builds and the fact that our school was opened in 1967, there's a lot of changes that's happened since then. So the building is not necessarily the main thing. The pupils are the main thing, but it's nice to have a nice building as well. Mm-hmm.
And you'll have been aware of Christos's comments last night in relation to some of the design features. Would those concerns be concerns that the CBS would share?
I think that's one of those comments you make is no comment, Alan.
Mm-hmm. Right, thanks, Fonzie. Michael, I suppose I'll go over that one of the ones with Fonzie there in relation to the state of the school. Obviously, Sacred Heart is there a lot longer than 10 years longer than the Brothers. Does it be difficult at sometimes to meet the needs of the?
It is. That's not. Yourself. You know the site. You and I would have walked those corridors ourselves, Alan. So you know what I mean. Like, there isn't a corridor that doesn't lead onto steps. We're a combined school, so you have the upper school and the lower school, and then the buildings in between. So it is difficult sometimes to manage that. But we're not the only school in the north that's dealing with those sort of challenges. But we're very fortunate now that we are moving towards a new school, and that's fantastic. But like Fonzie said here, it's so much. Education is about so much more than buildings. It's the relationships between the staff and the pupils in the schools, and fortunately in Omagh, all the schools have that. And even better than that again, which is going to help us as we move on to the site here, the relationship between the actual schools themselves is in a very, very high state, or very good state, because it's mutually beneficial to us all to have that level of collaboration, which will now be supercharged now when we move on to the site here. So.
And in terms of sports facilities, I'll ask you this one, then I'll come to you on that, Fonzie, as well, because obviously with the sports facilities here are going to be something that's, I suppose, state of the art. How much are you looking forward to that?
Oh, listen here. The sport is a big part of all our schools. Nothing unique to Omagh schools, but sport is a big part of the school, any school community, and to be able to access such fantastic facilities during the day, after school, and again opportunities for collaboration during the day and after school is going to be fantastic when it's right at your doorstep. I know, like for instance, the St. Pat's pitch, it's like a ball close to us. So we're dependent on borrowing from the brothers, borrowing from the Omagh St. Enda's, stuff like that there. So to have that on your doorstep is absolutely fantastic.
Will that be something for yourselves, Fonzie? Like obviously you have the major facility out at Coolnick Yard.
Well, I suppose for us, we are fortunate we have pitches, and we also have a good relationship with Omagh St. Enda's as well. But in terms of proximity to the school, they're a bit away, and that makes it, while we use the Brothers Park for our PE classes, for the junior classes, we don't really use the Coolnick Yard. That's really used for teams and training. To have those right beside us, at that sort of a level, and as you say, state of the art, not just the pitches but the sports facilities of the gyms and halls and things like that as well. And as Michael has said, sport is so important to schools. All extracurricular activities are, and I suppose we're in a very fortunate sense in the school, and we've counted up there recently that we have 12 coaches coaching sport in the school. And that means that the school is much more than just the books and the academic work. It's your friends, your teams, and a huge amount of that. And you have to think in the world we live in too, in terms of health and well-being, the contribution that sport, not just team sports, but all sports make. And I think that'll be a big thing as well when we move into the campus.
And Michael, lastly, I asked Fonzie about this, Christos's comments. Do you share the concerns that he has in relation to some of the size of the new building that you will get, and maybe some of the features within it?
I'm going to reiterate what Fonzie just said there, and that's one for Christos, but maybe you should chat to him about that one.
Yeah, but he did say that other principals shared those concerns. So, like with two of you here.
Well, I suppose I would have to say in terms of that, I'm not sure what he said. So, again, I think it's inappropriate to comment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, how important are the school sites that are going to be vacated? Obviously, it's a massive land base within the town. So, how important is that process going to be?
Very important. Like where we're sitting now, you can actually see Omagh CBS, and you can see the extent of that site. You go 100, 200 yards across the Kevlin Road and you see Omagh Academy. You go 100 yards in the other direction and you see the Sacred Heart College, which was once St. Patrick's and St. Bridget's. You then go maybe about half a mile in the western direction and you have Loreto Grammar. So these are all very historic sites for Omagh. The brothers have been there from 1967 on their current site. The Sacred Heart College, St. Patrick's and St. Bridget's, those schools were built in 1959 and 1961, and that was a major achievement for the community itself, because it was fundraising efforts took place to ensure that those schools were built. And then Loreto obviously have been in the town from 1855. They've been on that site there for well over 100 years. And similarly with Omagh Academy, I think it's maybe around about the 1930s that they opened their site. Omagh High School, like Sacred Heart College, has been there from the late 50s, early 60s. So when the Strule Education Campus opens, suddenly within, the school term ends in June. In September, we are left with 5 large sites within Omagh Town Centre that are suddenly going to be vacant. And that's going to be a major shock for people, first of all, because people are so accustomed to seeing teachers and students and ancillary staff walking down the street and coming into the town, and it feels as if the schools are part of the social fabric of the town as a result of that. So that's all going to change. And the question is then, what's going to happen with those sites? And the one thing that we don't want to see happening is that 5 years after closure, that you walk past the Brothers or you walk past the Academy or any of the schools, and all you see are boarded up windows and graffiti on the walls and weeds growing outside the perimeter fences. That's not what we want to see, and nobody wants to see that. But the reality is that at the moment, that is a distinct possibility, unless action is taken to ensure that all of those sites are utilised. So at the moment, they have various plans for each of the sites. So for example, for the Omagh CBS, it's retail, it's maybe an hotel.
You say they have plans, is that the council kind of?
So the council, for Fermanagh and Omagh Council, the Department for Education, the Education Authority, the other statutory organisations within the community have all got together, and they have regular meetings to decide what to do with these sites, to come up with proposals. And funny, the first proposals were outlined in 2022 as part of the Omagh place shaping plan. So as I said, Omagh CBS was going to be maybe some kind of retail development, similarly with the Academy. Omagh High School, they have no proposals for it because it's, at the moment, according to the place shaping plan, because it's owned by the Education Authority. So it's left to them then to make the decision. Yeah. The Loreto, because it's obviously a key site of religious importance because it was a convent, and you had nuns and whatever who were educating people, they're talking about some kind of religious or mental health well-being centre, that type of. So those are the types of proposals that are being proposed for each of the sites. Whether or not they reach fruition, I don't know. But an interesting thing about it was, I remember doing the story on the Omagh place shaping plan, and I was doing a wee bit of research to see, and suddenly I came across this website that I think it was Scottish-based company, had a proposal in for a big housing development on the site of the Sacred Heart College, which obviously is on the Kevlin Road as well. Housing development is obviously going to be one of the things that will be central to this, but the economic value of those sites is astronomical, I would suggest. And the big question is, are you going to get somebody to come in and develop a retail site on any of those sites? Because obviously you have a situation where you out on the Dromore Road, you have Asda, you have Sainsbury's potentially coming to the town, you have Super Value, you have Dunn Stores, you have all these big retail firms that are already based in Omagh. How much more retail can we take? I don't know. Hopefully in time some of the experts who are making these plans will give us the answers to those questions.
And that's the thing, there's so many questions still to come. We're sitting 2025, the plan is that September 2028 the school opens, and as we seen at the ceremony last week, there's plenty of work going on, but clearly there's a lot more questions on this project and a lot more twists and turns, but it's been great to get your analysis, guys, so thank you very much.
I think one of the things might be, before you finish, one of the things that it might be good to say is that, we have sat around here for half an hour talking about this, and maybe a lot of our conversation has been maybe bordering on a wee bit negative, I don't know. But I think overall it's a very positive development because, well,
there's no doubt, the Education Minister said, £375 million is a massive investment, and there has been many issues around it, and there will be continuing to be many issues around it, but as the Minister was keen to stress that there's many towns would be killed for an opportunity like this. Many schools moving into a brand new school, we know of a lot of schools falling apart. So there is, of course, it's a positive project. There's been a lot of issues around it, but then you feel that what's the overall feeling? Do you think within Omagh and the surrounding area and the schools around this project, is it kind of we've signed up for this, so we have to go with it, or is there real enthusiasm around it, or what?
Oh no, I think among parents and among children there is enthusiasm around it, and I think the schools had initial doubts, but I think they're fully behind it now as well, because they, whatever concerns, and with the exception of Omagh High School, whatever concerns that they had over identity and over losing their existing sites, I think those are all gone now. So with teachers, they're going into new buildings, of course they're going to be enthusiastic, and of course they're going to be excited. I have no doubt about that. And like Jonathan, you would see it from an educational point of view as well. You would know just what pupils think about it, and the excitement. Maybe if somebody going into P7 or P6 now, I'm going to be getting to the Strule campus.
Well, certainly, just overall, like we touched on the vacant sites that are going to be left in the town centre, but you can look at it in a positive way. Like there is a massive opportunity there for developers to come in and maybe develop things that maybe Omagh hasn't had, and definitely there is a big opportunity there in terms of the town centre site, but also out at the Strule Education Campus as well. Like it's going to be home to, like, was it 3,700?
4,000, 3,700, yeah, got to 4,000,
like,
yeah.
So it's an opportunity then to develop like a community out on that site. So yeah, there definitely is. We can look at it in a positive way as well.
Definitely an interesting few years ahead. Thank you, Jonathan.